Hello, it's Una from Oz here, and today I'm going to show you how I use napkins, or otherwise known as serviettes, in my art journaling. Now at the end I will show you some pages that I have done with napkins as a feature or a background, but first of all I'm going to go through and show you step by step of how what napkins are, how you can use them, how you prepare them, and what you can do with them. Don't forget, if you like what you see, subscribe to my channel and to keep up to date with what I've been doing. So napkins, this is my stash that I have recently got from a terrific shop in the UK. Really excited about these because they are just stunningly beautiful. So the napkins I have, as you can see, are two different sizes. The cocktail napkins are slightly smaller and the standard ones slightly bigger. Sometimes you get 4 images on one page, so to speak. Sometimes you get 2 images that go either side, and sometimes you get an all over single image. So this one, as you can see, has got 4 images. These are some of the beautiful little napkins I got recently. They are really, really delightful. Thrilled to bits with my selections. I divvy all my napkins up into categories for easy storage. I used to just have them tossed in the drawer. Well, not so much tossed, and it was a bit of a nightmare trying to find the ones I wanted because I knew it was in there and I couldn't necessarily find it. These slightly bigger ones are really beautiful as well. I've been really chuffed with finding this website. I'll put a link to it down below. I like this one particularly because I do have goats. This is a Toggenburg and I've got 2 of them. I've also got lots of chickens, so I'm quite partial to chickens. And as you can see, there is a huge range of all different kinds and colours and things. So I'm sure that you would be able to find a napkin to suit your tastes. I store my napkins by in these plastic pockets. I used to have them stored in little baggies, but I've got way too many, so I had to sort them out. They all have what they are, the category on them. They stack neatly in a tall drawer. The ones I've got in multiple ones in packets, so you buy a packet of 10 or a packet of 20, they tend to stay in their packets and I just stack them in the drawer. But this system for me so far has been working, but I expect this folder is going to get extremely large when I start adding my new napkins to it. So napkins generally come in 2 or 3 ply. Most of the ones I've come across have been 3 ply. And if you want to use them, there are a few different ways, but generally you have to separate the backs, which are the white bits, from the front. Now this can be seriously tedious if they're because they are actually slightly punched together. And to get the best effect from your napkin, you need to remove the back. So you can either use a bit of sticky tape, wet your fingers, spend hours and swearing, tickling the edges to get them off. I do all kinds of things. One of the easiest way to separate your napkins is to actually cut them. So as you can see, this image, there's 2 images here, they go across rather than 4. You can actually cut them with scissors and then they are much easier to separate from the middle because I haven't got the perforations holding them together at the edge. Not everybody wants a cut edge. I particularly don't like cut edges, so I tend to separate mine out and then I take them into pieces with a water brush, which I'll show you in a minute. With your backings, you normally get 2 or 3 pieces. Yes, they are delicate, but I generally keep these. They do have a nice little texture on the edge, which can be a bonus. I tend to keep these because you can treat these just like tissue paper. So I have these in a separate folder, and if I need a piece of tissue paper, I can stamp on it, I can ink it, I can colour it. They are really, really handy to have. And yeah, don't waste them because they can be really useful. So apart from cutting your napkins, I find the easiest way to separate the bits out that I want is with a water pen or even just a paintbrush fine paintbrush dipped in water. So to separate an image out, remember that once the napkin is wet, it is very delicate and can easily fall apart. So you do have to work with a little care so you don't damage your images, particularly if you only have one of that napkin. As a lot of the new ones I've only got one of each. So I make sure my water brush is going, and I go around the edge, not too close to the image, and as the paper gets wet, you'll see it's extremely easy to just separate it out. Now, you won't get a perfectly straight edge, but I'm fine with that. I don't particularly like a perfectly straight edge, and as you can see, as you go around with your water brush, you can take it off. Now, if you get to the fine edge, sometimes I find it's just really easy to just scratch it out with the fingernail. I've wet a bit of that. You don't always have to wet it. Sometimes it comes off without your your fingernail, and it's quite easy to clean the edges up with just scraping with your fingernail. So there I've got a nice circle of the flower. And to do the bigger flower, again, I'd do the same thing, just very slowly going round and easing it out with wetting the edges. Now, I don't go too close to the edge. Whoops, there's a blob. I don't go too close to the edge because you can actually damage your image if you go too close. Another reason for having a rough edge is if you actually do want to blend your edge of your napkin into your page, it's actually really easy to do because the paper is so thin, and I will show you a couple of instances where I have actually blended the napkin. Now, you can use part of the napkin, you can use the whole napkin, you can just take the backing off, stick it down as is. I've done that, and then you basically pull the excess off your page. This is a beautiful big image. There's no reason why you can't just put this on paper and make cards out of it. I certainly do make cards as well. I also scrapbook. So as you can see, take a little bit of time, a little bit of care, and it's quite easy to separate your image out. I pretty much don't throw any of my napkins away unless the pieces here get really teeny tiny. I would happily take these images out, or even just rip them up and stick them down. A lot of my leftover bits, I just rip them up into smaller pieces and collage them down. I don't instantly put this away because the edges will be wet and I don't want it to damage my other napkins, so I tend to sit this out until it's dry. These ones, if you're going to use them straight away, you don't really need to dry them edges, but as you can see, that looks quite nice. So we've got two images there, easy to do, rough edges, so I can easily blend them out. Okay, I actually use a glue to put my stick my napkins down. I just use glue and a brush, a matte medium. You can use a thin gesso, even though remember that it will be white unless you use clear. You can use a watered down PVA glue. You could use any kind of the binder mediums, the glue mediums. You don't particularly have to buy matte medium. I like this one because it is matte. I'm not particularly fussed with the shiny glossy ones, though I do have a few of them as well. So to stick this image down, I would just open my page. I find you need to use quite a bit of glue. You want a good smooth movement through your image. So if I was going to stick this image down, say here, move it up, I could put this one down here. So you need to make sure you've got quite a bit of glue underneath and on top. Remember, they are delicate when they are wet, so once you stick it down, if it's in the wrong spot, you pretty much won't be able to lift it. You won't always get your image perfectly smooth either, because it is a tissue. So after we put it down, we seal over the top. The sealer will soak into the tissue and help it adhere. You will get some wrinkles and maybe some bubbles. Bubbles I tend to just ease out. I tend to use quite a soft brush because you can rip the napkin if you are using a sharp brush. You can, remember they are translucent, so they will show what's underneath. So this is a bigger one, so I'm being quite generous with the glue, but I don't want globs. You can also do it partly by sticking the first bit of it down and then sneaking the glue under it as you go. That can work also as well. So remember, once you put it down, you pretty much only get one chance to glue it, because you're not going to be able to pick it up once you put it down. I tend to work from the middle out generously with glue, again making sure that the whole napkin is covered and also making sure there are no large globby bits. I generally tend to let the napkin dry before I continue working on it. You can dry it with a heat tool or let it dry naturally, but I don't always. My last video I did with the little fox face, I actually did the whole thing wet on wet because I wasn't doing anything else to that background. All I would do with that was either trim that edge off with the scissors, or I would trim it off by ripping it, because remember these are a bit delicate and they will rip quite easily, which is not necessarily a bad thing if you want that effect. So remember to be generous with the glue, but not globs. Glue underneath and over the top. And if you were going to keep working, you could fill in the gaps with more of the napkin. You just basically rip out what you want and glue it down. So that is what I would probably do to fill the rest of this in. You don't have to use your images as is. You can actually just put the whole napkin down. If I'm doing it over the double page, I tend to do one side at a time. So put the glue on here, put the napkin down, put the glue over the top, and then I'll hold it with my hand and then I'll put the glue down here. Sometimes using a big napkin, you can get a lot more bubbles. Make sure you don't have any bubbles. Use your brush to ease them out. You can see I do have some wrinkled texture. I don't mind the texture that much. That is one of the joys of having a napkin. You pretty much will not get it super smooth. So if you like a super smooth finish, you're going to struggle with that with the napkin. They are delicate, so remember that. Once you get them wet, once you place them down, you will very rarely be able to lift them up to move them. You can cut the images out with a scissors and do the same thing. It's a lot easier and quicker than using a water brush, but it depends on what you are going to do. You also have to remember that napkins, apart from the really dark ones, are quite translucent, so they will show what is underneath. If you are using a paler image on a very dark background, you may like to leave one of the underlying layers underneath it to help it stay white, but in doing so they are harder to glue down and you may get bubbles and loose bits because you have to get quite a bit of glue between the layers. Another thing you can do is actually glue your separated napkin piece you want onto a piece of white card, let it dry, and then cut that out so you have the nice crisp image. So here are some of the pages I have put with napkins. This is quite a dark napkin. It was had 4 butterflies on it. I've just pretty much stuck two of the pieces down and added a bit in between. They were probably so big each. It's quite dark. I would probably knock this back with a bit of watered down gesso. I could leave it as it is and just add more butterflies. Anything can come of it. This one, I actually stamped some green leaves under it, which you can see. So I've stamped green leaves on the page before I stuck the napkin down. Napkin is translucent. I stuck it down as a hole, and then I filled in a few gaps where I actually broke the napkin when I was gluing it down because I was trying to get rid of the bubbles. Quite effective. I think this page is going to have cactuses on it because I've cut out some cactuses. Another one of my journals. This is one of my favorite pages. It's really beautiful. This has got a napkin background on both pages. It's a Strathmore journal with lovely quality art paper. I nicked this napkin when I was having lunch at a friend's place. She lives on the coast and she had these beautiful ocean themed napkins. They had shells and the words and the blue. They were really, really pretty. I snuck one in my handbag and put it down. You can see I did give it a coat of gesso over it. It's got a few ragged edges. It's got lots of stamping. It's got some bubbles I did with glossy accents, some cutouts, and I really like this page. It's one of my favourite ones. I did that, it says here August 2016, so I did this one a little while ago. Both these pages have napkins on them. This one had a French themed one. There's the whatever it's called, can't remember. So I've done some stamping on top of it. Obviously I stuck the napkin down and knocked it back with a bit of gesso. Same with this one. It was a floral one. You can't see a lot of this underneath, but it does make a good starting background. You can use them as a feature or a background. They are a really good starting point if you want to break the blank page. Oh, peacock. This was a beautiful peacock napkin I bought a whole packet of. I did a napkin swap with friends, whereas they sent me some and I sent them some in return. This is the whole napkin unfolded, or most of it unfolded and stuck down, and the other bit I just ripped it up and glued it down. This is just glued down with matte medium. It's had no paint over it, and I really haven't decided what to do with it, but it's always there ready for me to do something with. This one I think is really beautiful. I did this recently. This was a leftover painted background from, it could have been from a roller when I was doing probably something with a jelly plate or putting paint on something. The napkin background was white. I cut the napkin image out with a water brush, and then I cut out separate flowers from the other opposite piece. Glued it down, and then I used a little gesso not only to go around the edges but to help blend the napkin in. I particularly like this page. Apologies as my camera cut out. So as I was saying, I really like this page. I think it's really beautiful with the floral arrangement, the extra flowers I cut out and put on the bottom, the blending of the white gesso. What I will do with it, I really don't know. I may put something on it, but I may just leave it as it is because I think it's lovely. So don't look at this side, that's pretty awful. We're going to redo that. This page here is just a serviette that's been opened out, backings off and put on. It's quite bright, it's got quite a lot going on. I may have to give it a light coat of gesso to work with it, or I may just add more butterflies and be done with it. This one here was actually made with tissue paper, which is very similar to napkins. It's just white thin tissue. I stamped the tissue, I painted the tissue, I ripped it all up, and then I glued it on. I did some doodling, put some bits and pieces on, and it actually turned out to be quite a nice page. So tissue itself, like napkins, are very versatile. Back to the little journal. This one also was a beach themed napkin. It had shells and some starfish, seahorse and anchor, so I turned it into a little sea page. I do a lot of sea pages, sort of living close to the coast. It's and I do love sea themes. This one was a napkin that you saw earlier. This is one I did a few years ago, or probably not even that. There's a doily, plain white doily under here, and I just ripped up the napkin and stuck it on basically. So that's just a good start of a background. I haven't done much with it. There is a little more texture on this page because of the doily. This was a really pretty bright napkin. I do believe it was more the cocktail size. I pretty much just opened it out, took the backing out and stuck it on. Really love the bright colours. Oh, you can see I've done a little stamping, but I haven't really developed this page much at all into anything so far. And the last one, this was a packet of Van Gogh doilies. This is his blue irises. Again, ripped it up, stuck it on. It's very textural, and it's not and quite matte in coloured. The napkins themselves are very coloured, very vivid. But again, there's a lot of things I can do with that. So I hope you've enjoyed what you can do with napkins. Don't forget, they are very versatile. They're great to fill a blank page, great as a background, great as a foreground. You can do a lot with them. And have a go with napkins, and hope you enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to keep up to date with what I'm doing, and keep a lookout for my next video, which will be going through some of my journals and flicking through some of the pages so you can see the work I've done over the years. Okay, bye for now.